everyone, this is Trina Schmidt and with You Inside You podcast. This is a sacred space that has been created out of the deep desire to connect with powerful, resilient, and influential people who have walked the walk and found themselves and committed to a life of self-love and higher purpose with a just to do it hat. And talking about just do it hat, we're going to be talking about bold action today. I have like a perfect guest with the just do it hat. So I want you to be inspired today. I want you to plant seeds of becoming more of who you are by listening to this amazing guest that I have for you today. So before I get him on the stage, I want to introduce him. He is a recent new friend of mine who I was so inspired by when I met his presence online. His energy is very zen. He makes you feel so welcome. He is a perfect model of being the you inside you and inspiring people to create bold action. So today we're going to talk with Gregory Benedikt. He's on a mission to live a story worth telling while helping others do the same. He is an ICF-certified coach and a leadership coach, and he specializes in helping people get the things that money can't buy. Who wants that? Yes, his coaching philosophy is centered around his belief that what we want most in life, we can't buy, right? Things like happiness, meaning, fulfillment, purpose. We're going to be talking about this today. Rather than they come as a byproduct of having courage to pursue our biggest dreams and live a life true to ourselves, right? The you inside you. He's dedicated his life to helping people transform their lives through taking bold action and a process he calls living a story worth telling. So welcome to the stage, Gregory.
Thank you so much for having me, Trina. I'm really excited to be here.
We're so pleased to have you here. I mean, first of all, I want to have you talk a little bit about who you are. You know, it's those beautiful introductions of the things that you do, but you know, who are you? And tell us a little bit about yourself.
Right. I love a good shiny bio, but I think people want to know the you inside me, the me inside me. And that's why I was so drawn to what you're doing. I think that concept of the you inside you and getting closer to who it is that you really are at your core, that is the goal in life, in my opinion. And that's really what started everything for me. So a little bit about me. I'm an old soul. I just turned 30 on the outside, but on the inside, I'm at least 95, 96. And I had all of the things that come with that old soulness, which were 2 existential life crises pretty early in life. By the time I was 25, I'd already had 2 big moments of what the heck am I doing with my life? I feel like I'm wearing a mask. I feel like I'm not being authentic to the me inside me, and I needed to change everything. And so in 2020, pretty much at the height of the pandemic, I decided to quit my job in finance, which was huge for me because I had studied finance. I was the logical, rational, analytical young man working in finance. That was my whole identity. And I decided that that actually wasn't my identity. That was the mask I was wearing that was getting me the accolades and the praise and the pats on the back from other people. So I took that mask off. I took a really hard left turn, and that led me to what I do today, which is coaching and helping people get the things that money can't buy, like you said. The things we want most, the meaning, the happiness, the passion, the fulfillment, the sense of aliveness, don't come from making a certain amount of money. They don't come from getting a job title. They come from having the courage to take bold action toward your biggest dreams and having that courage to live a life true to yourself, which is all 3 of those things together is what I call living a story worth telling.
I love that. And I love how you brought in that you're an old soul. This is actually not something that I've talked to a lot of people about, but I can totally resonate with that. I remember being very young and I wanted to hang out with the old people.
Yep.
I have more in common with the adults many times and wanted to kind of mingle around people that were at least 20, 30 years older than me. I could not necessarily relate or did not find peer-to-peer conversations fulfilling. It was just not about what really mattered. I was always in search of meaning. I was always in search of what is life all about? How do we create meaningful relationships? How do I understand, the meaning of me and why I'm here? And I was looking in the universe and looking for the stars. So, thank you for bringing that up, because I think a lot of people can resonate with that, because we sometimes grow up feeling wrong. So let me ask you, how did you know that you kind of needed that sharp left turn in life? Because I think a lot of people have that kind of nagging knowing, but how did you really know? What was the evidence of I need to make a change?
Yeah, that's such a good question. And I'll talk about it on the big scale, like the macro scale, and then I'll also kind of zoom in into the specific instance and actions and things that changed it for me. But if we start by zooming out and looking at my whole life as a picture, as a big picture, it was pretty much this low grade anxiety and unhappiness with what I was doing. I knew that I wanted to live an extraordinary life. And I knew that if I didn't try to be bold, to break out of the box, that I would have serious end of life regret. My biggest fear used to be getting to the end of my life and realizing that at some point along the way, I settled. And then I would just wake up 35, 45, 55 years later and take a look around and be like, oh my gosh, I'm still here. I can't believe I haven't done anything. So it was this overall feeling of knowing that I was capable of more and yet not quite yet having the courage to take action on that. And to me, that's the ultimate recipe for sadness and being miserable. It's when you know deep down you're capable of more. There's something within you. Maybe it's your soul, maybe it's whatever, your heart. It's telling you, hey, this isn't it, and you can do more. And you have to balance that with living in this world we live in and needing to make money and having all these things that matter. But ultimately, I think that we all need to listen to that inner voice, that inner conscious. And I'm not the first person to talk about this. There's been many famous people throughout history talking about it. But that was where I was at, big picture. I was unhappy with my work, my job. I was unhappy with the depth of my relationships, like you were talking about. I had really, really good friends, but I was growing and shifting, and a chasm was opening up between us about who they were and who I was and who I wanted to become and who they wanted to stay as. So work, friendships, and then also health. My body was starting to reject my lifestyle. I was recently graduated. I was still drinking alcohol and partying and doing all the fun stuff. And my body just wasn't having it. I would be hungover for like 3 days. And it's not like I was, drinking like 47 beers or anything, but my body had just had enough through college, through all of the things that I had put it through. So it's those three things that were really happening. And then if we zoom in on specific instances, it was November 2019 in Tokyo, Japan. I was with 8 of my best friends from college. We were doing this big trip in Japan. And the night before, we had this incredible night. We went to a karaoke hotel, which is like it sounds. It's literally a hotel that's been converted into karaoke rooms. And the night ended with me dancing on tables, singing, drinking all the beers. And I was so hungover the next day. I was so hungover that here I was halfway across the world in Japan, and I couldn't go out and explore. I couldn't go out and see the sights I wanted to see. So I was super bummed. And I'm sitting in the hostel cafe listening to a podcast, and it was Tim Ferriss talking about the number one regret of the dying. And he was citing this woman named Bronnie Ware, who wrote a book called The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying. And he was talking about how it turns out not only do most people have the same regrets at the end of their life, but that the number one regret people have is, I wish I would have had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expect of me. And when I heard that, granted, I was feeling terrible because I was super hungover. it punched me in the face. In one single moment, I realized I hate my job and I don't have the courage to change it. I'm growing apart from my friends and I don't know what I'm doing there. And then 3, the only reason I'm still drinking is because my friends love Party Greg. So it was all 3 of those things. And in that moment, I decided to go all of 2020 sober. I decided I would quit my job in finance and start living a life more true to myself. And I got back to the States. I knew I wanted to quit, but I didn't know exactly when I would do it. I wanted to know about what was coming next. I wanted some certainty. And it wasn't until I read a brutally painful quote, brutally real and raw from Charles Bukowski about the 9 to 5, that was like the final moment where I was like, this is it. I'm done. I have to take this leap of faith, take bold action. Otherwise, I'm going to regret this for the rest of my life.
Wow. I mean, this is just so mind-blowing. And there's so much that you touch on in this, especially what am I capable of, right? Anybody have that nagging voice? There's more. There's more to life. There are so many people that come in to my practice and in my community and my Facebook group that know that there is more. And they're in the exact same situation. Most of the women that that are become my clients and my students, they all have this sense of I I feel alone. Like my friends don't understand me anymore,
Yeah.
right? We're kind of outgrowing some of the relationships in our lives, and a lot of times marriages too, romantic relationships, because when we grow spiritually, there's stuff happening, right? All of a sudden we can't tolerate the same stuff anymore. I had to shut off news. I started knowing that other people actually stopped watching the news because they started evolving so much that you just like taking all that negativity in. And like, oh, people do that. and I'm like, okay, well, if they could do it, I can too. So this process of normalizing this personal growth and this spiritual involvement is so important for us not feeling alone and not buying into this, well, I should be out partying because my friends are, right? Or they
Right.
kind of expect me to take this role, or I should be watching the news because I should be informed about what's happening in the world. And it's hard not to give in to that. And when we transition into this newness, and this is a gap and a space I talk a lot with in some of the master classes that I'm teaching right now. And when we manifest our desires, there's this resistance happening, a resistance of obviously the new parts of us that are developing and shedding some of that old conditioning and the old patterns. But it's also mirrored in our relationships. So all of a sudden we're faced with resistance from the outside and resistance internally. And a lot of times when we are not supported and caught in that and it's normalized, we don't know how to deal with those consequences because our actions have consequences. Every action we take, we think about consequences like, oh, I speed and then I get a speeding ticket, right? Or I violate the law and there's a consequence, but there's also consequences that are serving us, right? And they might be painful and they might be challenging to kind of go through. So I imagine that your sharp left turn left you with consequences. Can you talk about some of those consequences?
Absolutely. One of the immediate consequences was going to my parents in the second time in a 3-year span and saying, hey, here I am again. I'm going to quit my job. But this time, I'm not moving from accounting to finance, which is normal and safe and comfortable and it'll be okay. This time, I'm quitting my job in finance and I have no idea what I'm going to do next. I remember talking to my dad on the phone and saying, hey, Dad, 50% of my plan is to have no plan. I'm trusting in the unknown. I'm trusting in the universe for the first time in my life. And you can imagine how that went. He, to his credit, was super supportive eventually. Both my parents, it was so interesting. Both of them got on board the moment that I decided that I was making the decision with or without their blessing, because I wasn't asking for any financial support. I'd saved up a bunch of money. I knew that I could make it a year without working if I needed to, just on my savings. So I wasn't asking them for anything, but still, of course, I wanted their blessing. I wanted them to say, yeah, I love that. I can't wait for you to go out into the unknown on this big adventure. And yet that's not what you get. And what comes up for me as I share that is that the people who love you most will often inadvertently hold you back because they want you to be safe and secure and comfortable. They prioritize your security over your personal fulfillment because the path to fulfillment, the spiritual growth, is messy and painful. There's a lot of ups and downs. So that was one of the consequences. On the flip side, like a positive consequence, was as soon as I made that decision and I started telling my CEO, my boss, that I was quitting, the universe got involved. And my whole life, my philosophy, my platform, everything I talk about right now is how the universe rewards bold action. And this was the boldest action I had ever taken. And really the first time that I had trusted in the unknown. And as soon as I did that, the universe was like, yes, good work. Here's a positive consequence that's going to come in. And 2 weeks after I quit my job in finance, I started a nonprofit with a stranger I met on the internet because I was connected to this other person who was literally saying the same words I was saying in terms of mission, vision, what he wanted to do with a slightly different twist. And he was starting this nonprofit. And I was like, dude, this is it. Like, this is what I want to do. So we joined forces and we started that. And it was a huge stepping stone. I helped get the nonprofit off the ground for 18 months. And we partnered with the International Coaching Federation, which is what led me to coaching. So it wasn't the thing I was going to do for the rest of my life, but it introduced me to what I am here to do. Like the whole reason I feel like I exist in this life as an old soul is to coach, to help people get everything that they want and have the courage to go after their dream. Because maybe people have that feeling that I had of, man, I know I'm capable of more and I just don't know in which direction. Or on the flip side, they're asking, is this it? They're taking a look around at adult life as we know it and saying, is this it? Is this really how I'm supposed to spend the next 60 years of my life? So it's that energy that I am so passionate about helping people around. Like that's what gets me out of bed in the morning, is that there are people out there who are stuck in a really terrible job, or it might even be their dream job. I heard this recently, is that one of the worst things that can happen is to be living someone else's dream. You're in a dream life that looks so good on paper, but it's not your dream and you're stuck in the wrong life. So that's, as you can tell, I'm getting fired up about this. That's what gets me out of bed in the morning, is that those people need a little bit of help. And I also draw the distinction that if you're in a 9 to 5, if you're working a job and you love it, amazing. Like that is, I'm envious of that because you might not have to go through all of the pain. But if you have that dissatisfaction, at some point you need to make a change.
Yeah, absolutely. And the bold change or the bold actions this is the steps outside of your comfort zone. It's a few steps outside of your comfort zone, right? This is really where you grow. This is the blurry space, the dark stuff that we cannot see the other side of. And I'm literally speaking this from personal experience because I have been very much inside of my comfort zone kind of person, although I guess I moved to another country, but I never saw myself do it. And I kind of justified my way here. And so, yes, I took some bold actions, but I was not one to kind of seek that out because I did not see the reward of it. I have then come a long way and realized that every bold action that I took, a lot bolder than the one before, there is doors and space opening itself that is just so shiny and bright and opportunistic that it is unbelievable. Like it blows your mind. And I think that's where the limitations of the human mind comes in so much, is we want to be so logical, so rational. We want an explanation and we want research to have backed it up before we believe it and before we buy it and before we step into it. However, how many times have you heard about the miracles and the leap of faith situations and events that people have had, and how much growth and learning has come from that? I mean, a lot of these things you cannot explain. You cannot explain that as soon as you make that decision and you commit to it, things just kind of like shift. You meet the right people, and then people call you up and be like, hey, would you like to? Right? A lot of these stories you just can't make up. And I really appreciate you sharing that space, because as you're speaking, all I'm thinking is kind of from my old version of myself. I'm like,
Mm,
how can you trust it? Like, how can you kind of appease that ego part of you that keeps saying, yeah, but Greg, how about this? Or this is not really going to work out. Or you kind of, left your safety. Or what about other people? Like, how do you kind of deal with that voice that
yeah,
creeps in sometime?
I would love to speak to that because that's who I used to be. When I was working in finance, I was trying so desperately to find my passion, my purpose, what I wanted to do with my life, and it wasn't working. Multiple years. I feel like I read every single personal development book, listened to all the podcasts, and I started to create this thought pattern around passion and purpose. That's great for other people, but not for me. I am stuck in finance. This is what I'm good at. I'm going to be here forever. And so if I can do it, so can you. I was so ensconced in, man, that purpose thing is just not for me, it's for other people. So I hope if you're listening to this, I hope that helps a little bit. And it's also probably not going to help that much because I am so fundamentally different than who I used to be. Like I literally reinvented myself as a human being because, and actually I'm going to edit myself. I didn't reinvent myself. I discovered who I really was because the mask I was wearing was clamping down so much of my playfulness and my energy
Mm,
and my aliveness. Like I have pictures on my website of me when I worked in finance and me now, and I look like a different person. Even just looking at my eyes, there's so much more
mm,
aliveness. So that's something I always bring up, especially in regards to the bold action too, because my mom still jokes when I tell her about the bold things I'm doing because I was like the shy, timid kid. I wasn't always bold like this. But the reason why I chose bold action as the vehicle is because I've seen it work again and again and again. You don't have to have the answer. You don't know what to do next. You don't need to know what to do next. But if you just choose something, anything that's outside of your comfort zone, you will start to see rewards. And you talked about a shift. I created language for this. I call it the shift from linear progress, where 1 + 1 = 2, everything makes sense, to exponential progress, where 1 + 1 = 12. And the
mm,
way you shift into that exponential progress is through taking bold action. It's
mm,
because the universe rewards bold action. And when it sees you consistently get out of your comfort zone, things stop making sense logically. What should have taken 10 years can take 10 months or even 10 minutes. You start to meet the right people, like you mentioned. People come out of nowhere. You meet a stranger on the internet. Someone calls you up and says, hey, you should come work for me in this position that's perfectly aligned to you. And time collapses. I tell people all the time that bold action collapses time. So
mm,
those three things are how you can know that you're living in this kind of magical space outside of your comfort zone, because that's what has informed this whole live a story worth telling thing too, is you want your life to be so not irrational, but you want it to not make sense in a good way. Like those are our favorite stories to tell. It's the rags to riches. It's the underdog to hero story. Like they succeeded against all odds. And that's why I call it living a story worth telling. Like make your life so extraordinary and outrageous in a good way that people want to talk about it. And you can tell that
mm,
story.
mm. Wow. I mean, if this is not inspiring, living a life worth telling. I mean, creating a story about you and the exponential growth through bold action. It's just so true. And I love how you brought that aliveness out, because I've noticed that not only for my clients that go through this process and just out of a few months just look different,
Yeah.
right? They shine different. They have a different aliveness in their eyes. They show up differently. And a lot of times they're not quite aware of it yet until we start pointing these things out, right? This is our job as a coach to really help them celebrate and recognize like how far they come very fast, especially when you're moving fast, right? When you're moving fast, you have to make sure we integrate and we recognize what's happening, being very present with this, so we don't just revert back to old behaviors. We really integrate, we just step into the newness, and we recognize that this is for me. You're talking about, something as purpose and people living with purpose is not for me. I totally recognize that within myself and for a lot of other people, because I think we live in a society where we're just told that this is for you and this is for me, and you can't do that, right? I mean, you can't strive for everything that you want. It's just not even possible. And it's just so not true. And we don't know until we step into it, right? And this is what you're talking about. And this is what I talk a lot about with people as well, that when we marinate in rooms or in communities where people have the next level aliveness, and you start hanging out with those people, and you start hanging out with Greg, and you listen to his podcast, and you're in this room with me, you are already taking some action in expanding yourself, because you're listening and you're in a space where things are possible. This is kind of the first step for me in terms of allowing people to create some momentum that's gonna step into the bold action, right?
Yeah.
Bold actions could be small too. Can you kind of define what bold action look like?
Absolutely. A bold action is anything that moves you to the edge of your comfort zone or beyond it. And some bold actions are super sexy and Instagrammable. I did a whole 100-day rejection challenge where I went around San Diego, knocking on strangers' doors, talking to strangers, asking them for crazy things. I asked people if they'd bake cookies with me. I asked if they would give me a piggyback ride. I asked if I could borrow $100. On day number 4, I knocked on a stranger's door and asked if I could jump in his swimming pool. And he said yes. We filmed a video of it and it went viral on Instagram. And then I had like this whole slew of ideas coming from all people, because I had support after I did this. And yeah, for 100 days just did these crazy things. But sometimes the boldest action you can take is calling your mom and having a difficult conversation. I called my mom during that and I was like, Mom, I'm 29. You don't need to protect me anymore. Like, that was getting in the way of me trying to share all of these fun, bold things I was doing, and her being like, I can't believe you did that. It's so unsafe, XYZ. And I'm like, God damn it, Mom, just be happy for me. So there's no cookie cutter one size fits all. It can literally be smiling at a stranger. It can be high-fiving the next stranger you see. It can be having a meaningful conversation. It can be being vulnerable, taking off that mask for a moment. There's so many different ways you can do it. And it's such a quick and easy way to instantly just get a hit of aliveness. Like making a stranger smile, one of my favorite things. It makes you feel so much better. When I'm going on a run now, I always, as I'm passing another runner, I'll go up for a high five. And it's about like 60-40 on if they'll high five me. But if that person high fives me back, electricity just runs through me. And I feel like I run the next mile at record pace because I'm just fired up. So in a world where we have a loneliness epidemic and so many people are desperately craving some human connection, a bold move can just be going up to a stranger and saying hello, or not even making it like you have to say something to them. One of my favorite things right now is, I'm still trying to figure out what to call it, but it's basically commenting on a shared situation with a stranger. So you're in line at the grocery store and they have a product in their basket that you love. You can be like, oh, I see you have that peanut butter. I love that too. Like, that's it. You don't have to have a full conversation with them. Just these little micro moments of human connection can be the best place to start. Or, like I said, you can go all in and knock on strangers' doors and face all of your biggest fears that way.
I love that. I mean, you gave me inspiration for my next walk. I might try the high five. That would definitely be my next level of stepping outside of my comfort zone.
Yes.
And, Greg and I met in, I think, Stacey Lawrence universe of do the thing. She is all about bold action too, but more in a kind of a comfort circle, right? We step just outside of the next comfort circle that we have. So when we've kind of mastered one thing and we've gotten comfortable being uncomfortable, right, we can continue to expand to the next comfort level, because I think it's important to let the viewers know and the listeners know that bold action is not this crazy thing. And I love how you gave different examples of this, because it is really determined on those comfort circles, that it could just be smiling at a stranger, like you're saying. That is kind of the next level, something that just makes you a little uncomfortable, something that's a little out of your norm, a little unusual. And we're dealing with that anxiety. We're dealing with the the uncomfortability. I think I created that word. I love using it all the time. It's like it becomes just part of my word. I'm not sure it is a word, but I love that word.
It's a great word.
It's a great word. And it's important because we create that connection. We also learn to deal with internal emotions, internal stories of dealing with embarrassment and what are other people going to think. I mean, I come from a very mindset, relationship therapy background where we are focusing on emotions and labeling them and being aware of what's in the room and what's in our body. And so when people think about these bold actions, yes, there's a lot of stuff coming up. That's the whole point, right? Because we create momentum and we create this discomfort, and knowing that we can be in the discomfort and nothing happens, right? Actually, contrary to that, we are amazed by the results and the things that occur based on those little gestures that could be huge for other people. So,
and if I can just jump in right there and say that's why I'm obsessed with taking bold action right now, because bold action doesn't care about you in the best way possible. It doesn't care whether you're old or young. It doesn't care whether you're feeling super confident and charismatic or you're struggling with social anxiety and you barely get yourself into that scary situation. All you have to do is move your body through space and time into a situation that scares you a little and excites you a lot. And boom, you'll start to see the rewards. So you don't have to have it all figured out before you get started. And to speak about Stacey, the woman who connected us, like that is her superpower. And we totally are speaking the same language, her and I. It's all about taking messy, imperfect action, doing it before you're ready, because you learn the lesson that you need to know to do the thing while you're actually doing the thing. That's been the biggest breakthrough and lesson of my life in the past 6 months from spending time with Stacey. Is the only way to learn the lesson you need to learn to do the thing is from doing the thing. It's not from thinking about it, planning it, forecasting, thinking about all the what ifs. And I'll just say one more note on this. That's why what you mentioned earlier, who you spend time with is unbelievably important. Who you spend time with determines the rest of your life, because you spend 3 weeks, 3 months with Stacey. It doesn't matter that you don't know how to do what you're going to do next. You're just doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Doing it messy, doing it imperfect. And for those of you listening and watching this right now, I used to be a planner, a preparer, a perfectionist, and it still creeps up on me because it's so inherent in me. I got this gifted from my dad. And it's just like, have everything organized and pre-prepped. Well, probably my mom too. I mean, this is very conditioned, and it's conditioned around us, you know. We have to prepare for a presentation, and we have to prepare for, you know, planning a trip. But there's so much preparedness involved in taking an exam and, you know, all this performance-based activities that we have in our lives. We're stepping outside of that. We're challenging that part of you, saying that there is a life outside of that. That when we slowly step outside of the comfort zone, that part of us that needs to prepare slowly goes away. Like currently, my husband freaks out if I haven't started packing for my international trip about like 3 days ahead. And I used to start around 2 weeks ahead of time. and and I will prepare a few things, but like the bulk of it, I'm like, you know, I kind of got the game down, and I've challenged myself actually to see kind of how far I can get without getting too anxious. You know, that was kind of part of my bold action of trying something different, because I was so done with the whole it has to be this way, and oh my gosh, and what if I forget something? It's just the biggest disaster. And I've worked with people that literally go through that every time they go on a trip, or every time they have to be on stage, or every time they have to prepare for I mean, even a master class. I kind of go in and just have a few notes and just kind of see what happens, because we want to be present, right? And we want to see what happens. And what if we miss a huge opportunity for a connection or an aha moment because we're sticking to a script and what's supposed to be and what ought to be, right?
Yeah.
Now I'm fired up.
I love it.
Am I on the right track here?
You're absolutely on the right track. And one of the best things I've heard about this recently is that perfectionism is procrastination masquerading as conscientiousness or intuition. So it's either, oh, I can't do this thing. I can't ship the work. I can't start the podcast yet because I'm a conscientious person who has high standards and attention to detail, but really it's just procrastination. Or on the other side, intuition is a really thing to play with, because I love intuition, and I'm currently trying to live more intuitively. It was definitely the intuition that led me into coaching in this life, not the logic, because it would never make sense to quit my high-paying finance job logically. But intuition can also, real intuition is good, but a lot of things can masquerade as intuition of, oh, I shouldn't get out of my comfort zone here because it doesn't quite feel right. It's probably not in alignment with who I am, when it's really just you being scared, and you need to do the thing and then check in with yourself how you feel. If you do something and it actually was out of alignment with who you're supposed to become, you'll feel it. It'll feel kind of gross and slimy. 95% of the time, you push through that feeling, you do the thing, you push through that resistance, and you just have this huge sigh of excitement and relief. I mean, anyone who's listening to this can relate. If you're procrastinating on something and you finally get it done, you finally do your chores, you finally write the paper, you finally start the project, you feel so good.
Thank you for bringing that part up. I have been on that journey for a long time myself, in terms of how do I discern between what is really intuition, what is my higher self, what is the universe speaking through me, versus this fear, right, of self-sabotage and keeping us small. And like, how do I know the difference, right? This is something that I have had discussions about with many people, and I work my clients through, because the difference is so delicate.
Right.
What you're saying is that, you know, through the bold action, it becomes easier to discern what is what, right? Because we kind of know when things are not right for us. We kind of know that. And there is the resistance is slightly different. And when we kind of push through that resistance, there is just bliss and
Bliss, yes.
celebration on
That's
the
the
other
word.
side.
That's the word I was looking for. is bliss, because resistance, and if you're listening to this and you want to learn more about resistance, there's a book called The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield, and
Mm,
he characterizes resistance as this thing. It's this invisible negative force whose sole purpose in life is to stop you from achieving your dreams. It's to keep you playing small. And that's the hardest part, is that resistance is a chameleon, and it can dress up, it can put on the hat and make it look and feel like it's intuition that's telling you, no, don't go do that thing. That's not right for you. When really it's just fear masquerading. And you nailed it. That's the feeling you get on the other side, is bliss. And
mm,
I'm so glad we're talking about this, because I'm obsessed with this topic. And I've had this conversation with so many people too. I had this conversation with Stacy probably 2 years ago. How do you know if it's resistance and you should push through it, or if this is actually intuition and like your alignment telling you, no, don't do that thing? And
yeah,
the answer I've come to thus far is you have to take a micro action to test it. And it's
yeah.
only on the other side that you can actually ascertain which one it was.
Wow. Wow, I'm taking that in right now. I'm letting that really soak in. So taking a micro action to test it out. I love that. What a great advice. It's something I'm gonna use myself. Something that I have really applied myself, but I'm not sure I've ever spoken it out with anybody before, and really having this conversation of what happens in the middle, and how do we really, what do we do about it? And we have to test, right? Everything that has to do with personal awareness and personal growth and expansion comes out of curiosity and openness, right? And in that is experimentation. In that is testing things out. We can only learn. There are no mistakes, right? So
Mm.
if we're in that space, we have to act our way out of it. I call it the ooze sandwich, of who we, how we act and behave in life right now, and who we really want to be. And if that sandwich is really loaded, it's like just oozing with anxiety in the middle, like it just oozes out, it's like an ooze sandwich. And to decrease that anxiety and bring those two closer to one another, we have to behave and act and respond to life in the way that we, as who we are, who we're supposed to be, our highest potential, our highest alignment. And that's not always easy. I mean, I believe that's why we're here on earth, right? We're really trying to lead a aligned and purposeful life as much as we can. And we're so fortunate to have you here with us today. And before we end, I really want to know more about your process. If people were to find you and kind of walk through this process with you, what does that look like, and how do people find you?
Yeah, the best place for people to find me, probably two places. One is gregoryrussellbenedikt.com. That's my website. You can book a discovery call. You can join my newsletter. You can also listen to the podcast, which is called the Dare to Dream podcast there, or you can find us on YouTube, Spotify, all the places, or LinkedIn. I love LinkedIn these days. I do a lot of writing on LinkedIn because I love to write. So either newsletter or LinkedIn to come get some writing, get little tidbits of inspiration in your life. The process that I walk through with all of my clients, if I'm working one-on-one with them, and it's similar for group, but there's a lot of things I'm up to right now. It's 3 easy steps. I'm gonna take that back. It's not easy, it's simple. 3 simple steps that sometimes feel easy, sometimes feel hard. Step number 1 is defining your new identity. Because like you said, you're here, here's where you want to go. You have to figure out who it is that you want to become. And we really spend a lot of time figuring out who you want to be in every area of your life, so that you can simply ask yourself, okay, if I want to be this person in this aspect of my life, what do I need to start doing on a daily basis? What habits do I need? What are the actions I need to take to become that person? So we define your new identity. Step number 2 is we design your dream life. And that comes after defining your new identity, because the person you are today and the person you're going to become will have different sized dreams. And we want to make sure we're tapping into those really big dreams. So that's step number 2, designing your dream life. What are the dream experiences, relationships? What impact do you want to have in other people's lives? What are the contributions you want to make? And then step number 3, which is really a third step and also dispersed throughout, is take bold action. We're going to get out of your comfort zone. We're going to cross things off your bucket list. We're going to slowly start to increase the surface area of where you're comfortable going, so that you'll still be getting out of your comfort zone. But if you look at it like a circle, eventually you'll be way more comfortable doing things that had previously been so hard for you, because that's one of the best skills you can learn in life, is getting comfortable being uncomfortable, which is kind of cliche, but getting comfortable doing things without all the prep, without all the worry, without all the stress. So those are the 3 steps that I take everyone through, whether it's one-on-one, group stuff, and those are the best ways to find me.
I love that. I kind of got a visual as you were talking about how to get comfortable being uncomfortable, which is also something that I speak about a lot. Is we can all recall a situation where we felt scared, usually as a child, something that we've gone through where we had some adult or some kind of guidance holding our hands and saying, it's okay, come with me, one step at a time, right? It's like walking into cold water. I grew up in Denmark, so it was always cold water.
Yeah.
And I was not a big fan of it. And I just remember, stepping one limb in at a time, and it's cold and you kind of get used to it, right? Why do we do that? We're getting comfortable being uncomfortable in that cold water. It is a lot more fun to do that with somebody. It's a lot more fun to have been prepped or have it normalized by somebody who knows kind of what to expect, not what you're going to find, because that's going to be individual for you, but what leading you through that process of saying, okay, we're going to do one more step and see what happens, right? And you might enjoy it right away and you might not, but what you're going to discover at the end of it, only time will show, but it's going to be amazing. So I don't know, that's just kind of the visual I get. And I appreciate the work that you do for human, the human race, and for the world, and for change, and for love, and for everything. I'm so appreciative to have you be part of my world now as well. And for creating bold action. You're a huge inspiration in all of this. So any final advice or suggestion that you have for people who are maybe considering more bold action, or they kind of have that voice that now being spoken and listening to this, they're like, oh, it is that voice. Okay, I have felt all of these things. Like, now what?
I think what you were talking about, how it's so much easier and more fun to do with someone, is applicable here. Because as you were sharing that, I realized 2 things. One, I've known this for a while, but I'm articulating it differently, which is I'm different than a lot of coaches because I'm not sitting on the side of the ice pond saying, oh yeah, keep going, take a step further into the water. I'm there right next to you, maybe holding your hand as we go into this cold water together. And the most powerful part about doing it with someone is I'm not letting all of the stories and the emotions get in the way. I can look at you and say, that's interesting. You said that you can swim, but you're wearing water wings. What's that about? Like, there's just so much value that comes from having a partner in bold action, having someone who has walked the walk, not just talked the talk. And that's something I'm really passionate about, is getting out from behind the computer screen, getting outside of the traditional one-on-one or group coaching hour-long session to do things in the real world together that are bold, that are scary, that are fun. So if you're feeling like, wow, this resonates, I too have that voice inside me that's either saying, is this it? Or I know I'm capable of more and I need to do something about it. Don't wait. Don't hesitate. If you try and do it all by yourself, it is hard. It is so incredibly hard. That's something that I'm both grateful that I found through coaching, working with coaches. I have worked with coaches and it's helped me so much, but I wish I found it earlier.
Yeah.
If I had had a coach through college, it would have been such a game changer, because maybe I wouldn't have had to wander off into the finance world for quite so long, but
Yes.
it all happens for a reason.
Oh, absolutely. I hear you. I also look back and I'm like, wow, had I been privileged in having somebody walk with me that have all this experience and could put things in perspective for me, so you don't have to like fumble in the dark. I literally felt like a fumble in the dark for years of my life,
Yeah.
believing that life has to be hard, believing that settling is part of life, believing that I have to compromise a part of who I am because I moved to another country and I will never find what I had before here. I mean, there's just so many beliefs, and you don't have to do it alone. And there are communities for that. I have Facebook group, and you have groups. The podcast, keep listening, keep getting inspired, keep following your heart and the voices that inspire you, because most likely that is that next level for you. Most likely that's going to start integrating, upgrading your vibration, your cells. It's going to get you to the next level. So I'm going to have all Greg's information readily available for you, so you guys can find him, so you guys can jump on and take bold action. I am super excited. So I really appreciate having you here today. Thank you so much for being in that space with me. You are a true inspiration, a soul friend, and I look forward to seeing where you're going to be taking people, and where our journeys are going to meet next.
Thank you so much for having me, Trina. I'm very glad that two old souls found each other. We are definitely kindred spirits. So thanks for having me on, and thanks for everyone who's tuning in. Appreciate you.
Thank you so much. Everybody, be well, be kind to one another, honor the you inside you, and I will see you next time.